The day I left San Francisco was the day of Serafina Booth's engagement party. Fireworks exploded all across the bay. Everyone said Peter Cole was the one Serafina treasured most, which was why the party was so extravagant. I couldn't agree more. After all, I only looked about 60 or 70% like him, and that was enough to keep me by Serafina's side for 4 whole years. The ferry pulled away from the dock. I remembered how I used to always ask her, "Are you coming home tonight?" She never answered. Now, for once, I was the one with the last word. I had someone pass her a message. "I'm not coming back." I knew from the moment I started seeing Serafina that she had a childhood sweetheart. Everyone said I looked like him. Serafina would always scoff, "Not even close." I understood right then. She had the moon in her heart, I was just a passing shadow. A reflection was fine as long as I didn't take it too seriously. The day I met Serafina Booth, an upperclassman had set me up with a gig as a host for parties. She was the last to arrive at the dinner. Even though she was late, everyone at the table fawned over her. Serafina's gaze kept drifting to me, her eyes full of curiosity. The table was full of sharks, and they smelled blood in the water. Someone started egging me on to make a toast to Serafina. She just sat there, poised and unshakable, neither encouraging nor stopping them. By the time the glass was shoved into my hand, it was already full. Before I could refuse, I was pushed in front of her. I took a deep breath, about to say no. She spoke. "Are you all drinking with me or with him?" After that night, whenever Serafina showed up, the manager made sure I was assigned to her. The day I sat closest to her, she didn't say a word to me, nor did she raise her glass once. At the end of the table sat some new money guy from out of town. He'd been trying to get her attention since he walked in. By the end of the night, seeing that Serafina hadn't touched a drop of alcohol, he was getting annoyed. He slid the glass over to me, sitting beside her. "Well, since Ms. Booth can't drink," he drawled, "you can drink for her." I'd been doing this for 3 months. I wasn't a rookie anymore. I took the glass, but before I could open my mouth, the person next to me moved. Serafina turned, took the glass from my hand, and downed the whole thing in one go. 3 months. That was the first time I'd ever seen her accept a drink from anyone. That night, Serafina was waiting for me in her car outside the club. The San Francisco Bay was right behind her. The glittering lights reflected on her face, making her look beautiful and gentle. When she opened the car door, she asked me just one thing. "Is this okay?" I understood the 1,000 words packed into that question, so I got in. I never had to work at that club again. This new job, keeping Serafina company, lasted 3 years. I went from being the college kid her friends talked about to Mr. Julian Bates. After all, besides me, no one had ever managed to stay by Miss Booth's side for more than a year. She wasn't actually that hard to please, and she didn't have a strange temper. On the contrary, her upbringing made her incredibly polished and ladylike. But most of the time we were together, she showed very little emotion. Being with her meant accepting coldness and loneliness as the norm. And since I grew up on my own, I was used to all of it. During the first year, her friends would joke, "Anyone who lasts more than 6 months with Serafina will freeze to death." Yet 3 years later, I was still standing there, steady as ever. When Kevin Wu texted me, I was packing my clothes to go back to campus. Serafina was going on a business trip for a few months, and I planned to move back into my dorm. "Serafina's sending a driver for you. Are you in Pacific Heights?" Kevin was one of Serafina's best friends. I'd had his number for a long time, but we'd never texted one-on-one. It was a little weird, but I just sent back an MHM. I called Serafina, but since it was during work hours, she didn't pick up as usual. The driver arrived quickly. It was the same guy Kevin always used. I'd seen him a few times. He greeted me warmly. "Mr. Bates, I'm taking you to the Sanctuary." The Sanctuary was a vegetarian restaurant. It was nestled on a hillside with a distant view of the bay. The city lights were just starting to come on. I didn't go in right away, just stood by the entrance for a moment, looking out. All this glamour is right in front of my eyes, but none of it can be mine, I thought with a pang of regret. Someone next to me let out a surprised "huh?" When I turned, he exclaimed, "It really is you." Is Serafina here? The speaker was Dylan Wong, another one of Serafina's childhood friends. His family was a titan in the city's restaurant scene, and the sanctuary was one of his properties. Isn't she? I asked, confused. Kevin had a driver pick me up. He said she sent for me. Dylan's smile looked a little forced, and that strange feeling in my gut grew stronger. Kevin contacted you? He said. Well, let's go in together then. As he spoke, he opened the restaurant door, and a wave of warmth washed over us. I was about to make an excuse and say I needed to call Serafina again, but the people standing in the middle of the lobby had already turned to look, their eyes fixed on us. In the center was a young man who, at first glance, looked about 60 or 70% like me. In an instant, I knew who he was. Peter Cole, Serafina's childhood sweetheart. I'd heard he was about to return from his studies abroad. I never thought I'd walk right into his welcome home party. Kevin Wu was the first to approach, using his body to block most of the stares from behind him. What a coincidence, he said with a grin. Jules, you entertaining friends here tonight? 2, I'll have Dylan comp your bill. Both Dylan and I were stunned. Dylan spoke first. What the hell are you talking about? Weren't you the one who sent a driver to pick Jules up? The expression on Kevin's face froze. Am I actually losing my mind? He pulled out his phone, took one look, and said in shock, it really was me. The click-clack of leather shoes came from behind Kevin, followed by a young man's clear voice. You must be Julian Bates. I used Kevin's phone to text you. It's a pleasure to meet you.
I'm Peter Cole.
I'd already guessed as much from Kevin's first words, so when my suspicion was confirmed, I wasn't surprised.
Hello, I'm Julian Bates.
Welcome back. A faint smile played on his lips. Oh, you know who I am? Kevin gestured between the two of us. Is it that hard to figure out? Peter's smile widened. True. I've always heard that Serafina had a companion who looked just like me, so I wanted to see for myself. I hope you're not offended, Mr. Bates. The word companion rolled off his tongue, adding a layer of suggestive ambiguity. Over the years, I'd grown used to this sort of thing by Serafina's side, and it didn't bother me anymore. I just smiled faintly. Not at all. A candle can't compete with the sun. You're too kind, Mr. Cole. Peter was clearly pleased with my tact, and it made him lose interest in me. He turned to his friends. All right, let's go. Almost everyone's here. Let's head to the private room. Kevin walked beside him, muttering something I couldn't quite hear. Dylan leaned in and said to me he grew up with us, so everyone treats him like a little brother, especially Kevin, who spoils him rotten. He's just got a kid's temper. Don't take it personally. Sit for a few minutes, and I'll get a driver to take you home. I could only nod. But just as I sat down, I got a call from Serafina. Dylan saw the name on the screen and smiled. Go take it outside. You can just have Serafina come pick you up. I was grabbing my phone to leave when Peter called out. Leaving already? No way. Everyone has to listen to me today. You can't go yet. He said it with such a self-assured yet disarming charm that it was hard to argue. Dylan chimed in. Easy, big shot. He's just taking a call. He'll be right back. As he said this, he nudged me toward the door, and I slipped out. As the door closed, I saw Peter shoot me a look. It wasn't exactly friendly. Serafina asked where I was. At the sanctuary. Entertaining friends there? I wanted to roll my eyes, just like when Kevin asked. Me? My status? Entertaining friends here? A plate of steamed bok choy here costs $50. No, I ended up at the wrong place. Did you leave your brain at home today? How do you accidentally end up there? Go find Dylan and have him arrange a driver to bring you back. I'll be waiting in Pacific Heights. I hung up and went to the restroom. The moment I came out, my phone rang again. It was Serafina. Did you see Peter? There was no discernible emotion in her voice. I could picture her perfectly expressionless face. Yes, he texted me from Kevin's phone. Then why didn't you say so just now? Stay put. I'm coming to get you. The person who, just a moment ago, told me to get a driver was now coming to pick me up herself the second she heard her childhood sweetheart was there. The implication was painfully obvious. Feeling a bit deflated, I leaned against the second floor railing and looked down toward the city. Peter had appeared next to me at some point, having left the private room. It's beautiful here, isn't it? For 4 years in England, I missed everything about this place every single day. He paused, then smiled at me. And the people here. He posed a question. Aren't you going to ask who? I pointed to the woman just getting out of a car on the first floor. She's here. I actually didn't tell her I was coming today on purpose. I didn't let any of my friends tell her either. I called you here to test her. Who do you think she came for today, you or me? I didn't say anything. He didn't need my answer. Before he went downstairs, he told me after today, she can only come for me. Confident and domineering. I heard Serafina say to him, "Why didn't you tell me you were back?" I didn't, but you came anyway, didn't you? It was as if Serafina had eyes in the back of her head. She just said one word, down. I scurried down like a scolded dog. Peter's smile had a hint of a barely perceptible strain. You didn't even get me a welcome home gift. You can just treat me to dinner today. Serafina glanced at him, a half smile on her face. An ambush? Dylan came out just in time to hear that. Of course not. Come on, you two. The guest of honor is out here while everyone's waiting inside. When I woke up the next morning, there was a gift box on the table. When the assistant came in with breakfast, Serafina instructed her, "Have this delivered to Apex Properties." That one sentence was all I needed. It was the welcome home gift Peter had mentioned offhandedly yesterday. Perhaps because I glanced at it a few too many times, Serafina asked me, "You like it?" I shook my head. I didn't even know what it was. So how could I like it? It's just a custom watch. If you like it, I have a better one for you. This time I shook my head for real. I don't want it. I like gold. She let out a soft laugh. Noted. I'll bring you back a gold bar tomorrow. She said tomorrow, but it was on the table that same evening. I picked it up carefully, weighing it in my hands for a long time. Feeling the heft of the 1 kilogram bar, I put it down with satisfaction. I never imagined Serafina would see the whole thing from the kitchen, where she was getting a glass of water. Look at you, you little gold digger. Have I ever let you go hungry or thirsty? Serafina had always been generous. While I was with her, my food, clothes, and expenses were all the best of the best. Take it. I put a new safe for you under your nightstand. You can keep your valuables in there from now on. When it's full, you can drag it back to your little apartment. Serafina had given me an apartment not far from my school. I'd only stayed there twice, but it was already crammed full. It was filled with all the gifts Serafina had given me on a whim over the years. Once the novelty wore off on many things, Serafina wouldn't let me use them anymore. I couldn't bear to throw them away, so I stored them all there. One time, Serafina happened to see it and teased me, "Are you a squirrel? Are you hoarding all this for winter?" Later, she would casually toss me things she was done with. "Here, you hoarder. Take this back to your little way station." She was such a contradiction. She'd scoff at my habits, but then, in certain moments, show this incredible tolerance that made me mistakenly believe I was close to reaching her. But the next second, I heard her ask in a low voice, "What's with the suitcase on the floor?" After being together for so long, I knew her moods. That tone meant she was not happy. I hadn't had a chance to talk to her about moving back to campus. She hated it when I was out of her sight, and she hated it when I acted without her permission. As I was trying to think of an excuse, she said, "What lie are you trying to spin now? How would I dare? You're about to be out of the country for 3 months. It's not convenient for me to live here alone. I need a driver to go anywhere. It's better to just live at school." Her expression didn't soften much. I had no choice but to continue. Besides, I'm used to being with you. If I have to be alone for that long, a smaller space will make me feel a little better. She liked it when I was submissive. Her face visibly relaxed. As she watched me pack, she said, "Call me if you miss me. If anything urgent comes up, call Dylan. He's more reliable than Kevin. He can handle anything, big or small." I found it a little funny. What kind of major crisis could a poor college kid from out of town possibly have? But I still agreed. "Okay, I know. Good boy." She liked it when I was submissive, and she liked it when I was obedient. She was very gentle that night, too. Sleep after exhaustion is always deep. When I woke up the next morning, she was already gone. I knew medical school wouldn't be easy when I applied. But being a med student at Cal could only be described as exceptionally grueling. In previous years, I could still find time to be with Serafina. This was my 4th year with her, and my 6th year as an undergrad at Cal. There were countless clinical tests and complex written exams. The workload was heavier than the previous 5 years combined. So I was actually relieved that Serafina was traveling at this time. I was so busy that when I got my first call from her, I realized she had already been gone for a week. I told you to move back to your dorm, not to disappear off the face of the earth, did I? She demanded over the phone. I quickly apologized. I'm so sorry, it's been crazy. I have to do rotations for every specialty, and there are clinical tests after each one. If you don't pass, you have to do it all over again. She huffed on the other end. Call me every day from now on, or you're moving back to Pacific Heights. Okay, I will. Seeing how quickly I agreed, her mood brightened, and she talked with me a bit longer. You can't just work all the time, you need to relax. Do you want me to have meals sent over from the house? No, the food in our school cafeteria is really good. Fine. Then every weekend, I'll have Dylan send you food from his restaurant. You should eat better. I had already refused her once, a second time would annoy her. So I said, okay. After hanging up, I scrolled through my messages and saw a new friend request. I opened it. It was Peter Cole. I tapped on his profile picture. It was a photo of him on a street in some foreign country, smiling at the camera. The sunlight poured over him, bright and handsome. I glanced at my own profile picture, a little lemon, and almost had an identity crisis. The moment I accepted, he sent a greeting sticker and a glaringly obvious address. He was in the same city Serafina was visiting for her business trip. He didn't say anything else. His provocation carried an air of superiority. I had to admit, he and Serafina were the same kind of people. He just made a gesture of pursuit, confident that I would back down. What he didn't understand was that, in my relationship with Serafina, I was never the one who made the decisions. The person he needed to win over had always been, and only ever been, Serafina. He was giving me a play-by-play of his time with Serafina. When they met up, when they had dinner, when they went shopping together. I was the first to get the updates. For a moment, I almost felt like I had hired Peter as my own private investigator to spy on Serafina's private life. It got to the point where one day, while on the phone with Serafina, she mentioned she was planning to have Chinese food for dinner, and I blurted out, "Didn't you already have that for lunch?" She asked, "How did you know?" I thought for a moment before saying, "I saw it on Peter's feed." Luckily, he was also posting updates to his social media. Kevin was constantly in the comments, cheering him on and wishing him a triumphant return. Serafina was in a rare mood to explain. He's here to buy a watch. He's heading back in a couple of days. And he did come back a couple of days later. On the 3rd day, I saw Peter at the school gate. He brought me some major news. He leaned against my classroom doorframe and said, "Serafina and I are getting engaged." My heart skipped a beat. I looked up at him. He sneered. "I thought you didn't care at all. You always put on such a good act in front of Serafina, but when it comes down to it, you still panic, don't you?" It's hard to describe how I felt at that moment. When I first heard it, there was a dull, numb ache in my chest. Then came a sense of relief and release. It was bound to happen sooner or later. "Then I wish you all the best, Mr. Cole." He just stared at me, his eyes filled with disdain and contempt, still acting tough. "Huh? I'm not kidding. I came back this year to prepare for our engagement. After it's done, I still have to go back to school. Why do you think Serafina just happened to go abroad on a business trip right now? For the next 2 or 3 years, her focus will be over there because she's going to be with me. Don't believe me? Why don't you ask her? Don't you two talk on the phone for hours every day?" He spoke quickly, his tone slightly elevated, his words naturally dripping with sarcasm. I had nothing to ask, and nothing to believe or disbelieve, because in this relationship, my thoughts didn't matter. All I could do was accept. "Hey, why aren't you talking? Are you this quiet around Serafina too? Or do you just not want to talk to me?" I gathered my books and walked toward him. I stood beside him for a moment and said, "Because I'm not good with words. I'm afraid I'll say the wrong thing and upset you." "You're not good with words?" "I heard that for the past few years you're the only one who's been by Serafina's side. If you're not good with words, how could you have her wrapped around your finger?" I stared at his face for a long time until he started to look a little uncomfortable. Then I said, "It's probably because of this face." His expression immediately softened, revealing a hint of innocence and vanity. "Serafina always said I was very handsome." "Yes, that's what she said about me too. Once, I asked her why she chose me out of so many other guys. She said it was because I was handsome, strikingly handsome." Looking at the face in front of me, which was a good 60 or 70% match to my own, I finally understood what strikingly handsome meant. "Mr. Cole, I have a class, so I have to go. Make yourself at home." He looked at the thick books in my hand and then reached out to feel the weight of my backpack. "This is heavy as hell. I heard med school is tough. Since you're with Serafina, why don't you find something easier to do? It wouldn't be hard for her to open a private clinic for you or start a pharmaceutical company." The more I interacted with Peter, the more I felt he and Serafina were the same kind of person. Even the way they spoke was identical. Once, right before finals week, I was cramming in the study at her Pacific Heights house. So busy I didn't even have time for her. After I shut her down for 3 days in a row, she said resentfully, "I don't see the point of you studying so much. If you really like it, you could just open a clinic or a pharmaceutical company." The way she said it was as casual as buying a head of cabbage at the corner store. Some things just feel more real when you earn them yourself. Peter said, "But if she opened a company, wouldn't it be yours? You think Serafina would ask for it back?" I pointed to my head and walked away. Our minds definitely worked on different wavelengths. We couldn't find any common ground. I had to get to class and didn't want to be a second late. He called after me, "You're not calling me an idiot, are you?" Serafina was abroad for a full 4 months this time, an entire month longer than originally planned. She didn't come back once during that period, though we did video call every day. The night before she was due to return, she told me on the phone that she would be back the next afternoon. I don't know what wire got crossed in my head, but I replied, "So soon?" Her face visibly darkened, and her voice dropped. "So soon? It seems you've been having a little too much fun while I've been away. Just you wait." After that, she didn't answer my calls, so I didn't even have a chance to try to make nice. I was on edge all day. It wasn't until I walked out of the school gates and saw her car that the dread finally hit its peak. She had been scowling, but seeing the color drained from my face seemed to cheer her up a bit. She smiled and asked, "Why the long face? Did you actually take what I said to heart?" I played along. "It's because I missed you so much I couldn't eat or sleep." Well, you can show me just how much you missed me in a little while." Serafina didn't even let me eat dinner. I was the main course. She was always the one in control in that department. But that night, she kept guiding me. It wasn't until well past midnight that she mercifully pulled me out of the bedroom and asked if I wanted some congee. I was furious. What kind of fresh hell was this? Making me do all that work and not even letting me eat? Maybe my eyes were wide with indignation, because she laughed out loud. "All right, let's go get some late-night dim sum." I insisted it's pre-dawn dim sum. She leaned over me, pressing down on the covers. "I don't mind if we actually make it breakfast." I scrambled out of bed and grabbed clothes from the closet. "I'm just worried you're hungry." At 2 a.m., the Lotus Pavilion was still buzzing with activity. As soon as the steaming clay pot of congee hit the table and the lid was lifted, the whole booth was enveloped in steam. I looked through the mist at Serafina. Her face was obscured, not quite clear. Someone walked past our table, then came back half a minute later. "Serafina, you're here. Why not get a private room?" It was Dylan Wong. This place was also one of his. At times like this, I always thought San Francisco felt so small. Especially when your social circle is all in the same tier, it's always the same people coming and going. Serafina was in a great mood today. "Pay for a private room just to eat congee?" she quipped. I feel ripped off. Dylan let out a damn and said, "When did you get back? Kevin was saying if you didn't come back soon, he was gonna fly to the States to drag you back." What took you so long this time? Ran into some issues. Things didn't go as smoothly as I'd hoped, so it took a little longer. While they were talking, I swept the table clean of dim sum. Serafina was multitasking, talking to Dylan while not forgetting to roast me. The little squirrel is out for the winter. Huh? How many days is this one meal going to last you? There's a living, breathing person sitting at this table, you know. You want me to starve? Who was it in the car just now trying to sweet-talk me, saying my wish was their command? So your master doesn't eat? Dylan was trying to stifle his laughter. When he couldn't hold it in anymore, he called a waiter over. Bring another round of everything for this table. Serafina glanced at him. What are you doing, trying to boost your sales numbers? Dylan threw his hands up in surrender. I give up, Serafina. This one's on me. Just eat. I have to go do my rounds. As soon as he walked away, I asked curiously, he still has to do rounds? With so many restaurants, doesn't he get exhausted? Serafina said he has 3 brothers. If he doesn't want to do the rounds, there are plenty of people who will step up. That was the first time Serafina ever told me about her friends. Just a few sentences, but it painted a picture of a bloodless war among the elite. The Wong family had 4 sons. Dylan was the eldest, the other 3 were from his father's affair. His mother passed away early, and 6 months later, his father brought his mistress and her sons into the family home. After losing his mother, he lost his father and his home too. But he still lives in the old family estate. His father, the stepmom, and those 3 sons live somewhere else. The old estate was a symbol of status and power in the family. It meant that, at least for now, Dylan still had the upper hand in this power struggle. Kevin's family is much simpler. Neither of his parents has siblings, so he's the sole heir on both sides. They've completely spoiled him into the carefree guy he is today. His father's family was a real estate giant, and his mother's was a major player in import-export. Raising him to be carefree was practically a parenting success story. Serafina glanced at me. Are you only interested in them? Of course, I'm more interested in you. She let out a small, huffed laugh, a hint of undeniable pleasure in her voice. Even someone so high and mighty was not immune to flattery. Actually, I already knew about 70 or 80% of her family history from the city's gossip rags. Her parents were both huge movie stars back in the day. They fell in love on set, got married, had a child, and retired from the screen. Later, with a sharp eye for investment and the right connections, they made a fortune in the film industry. Then they both had affairs. My mom died in a car crash. The young star in the passenger seat was a rookie actor. My dad told me later that the man had been trying to use my mom to get ahead, and in the end, they both died together. My dad eventually gave me a little brother and sister, but they live abroad. Yep, it seemed the city's gossip was pretty reliable. There weren't any major discrepancies. It was rare for Serafina to be in the mood to tell me so much. I wanted to ask about Peter, but I was afraid of ruining the atmosphere, so I kept my mouth shut. Then, as if on cue, Peter and his entourage walked in. If the look of surprise on his face wasn't so genuine, I'd suspect he had a tracker on Serafina. He was incredibly popular everywhere he went. He was surrounded by a huge group of friends, and he had endless energy. I saw him on my feed 8 out of 10 nights, popping up in various spots around the city. His eyes lit up when he saw Serafina, sparkling and impossibly handsome. Serafina, what are you doing here? I thought you weren't coming back until next week. Yeah, I finished up early, so I came back. He complained. Then why didn't you tell me? I was about to come find you, but Kevin said you were busy, so I didn't go. Kevin had been talking to someone by the door. Seeing Peter's group stop, he finally walked over. He started complaining the second he saw Serafina. I didn't believe Dylan when he said you were back. He pointed at Peter and said, "Since you're here, you can take care of this kid yourself. I'm about to go crazy babysitting for you these past few days." Only after he said that did he see me sitting across from her. His expression turned awkward for a split second. But he recovered quickly and greeted me. "Jules, you're here too? How's the kanji at this place? It's another one of Dylan's new spots. I'll have him get you a gift card later." A huge crowd of people blocking the middle of the lobby wasn't a good look. Someone suggested, since we're all here, let's go to a private room. I was skeptical about their chance encounter. Turns out, so was Serafina. I could take a walk downtown and run into you 3 times. You guys have fun, we're leaving. She called out to me, Julian. I immediately stood up and followed her out. As we reached the door, I glanced back. Peter, who had just reached the private room, happened to look over at the same time. His eyes were filled with sorrow and hurt. Serafina was oblivious to it all. My schoolwork was already demanding enough, and then there was the overwhelming pressure of finals week. Although the daily commute to Pacific Heights was a bit of a hassle, at least it was quiet there. Most of the time, Serafina wasn't home, which meant I could study for my exams in peace. They called it finals week, but it was really a full month of various tests and assessments. By the time I was truly free, it was almost the new year. The end of the year, however, was Serafina's busiest time. She had to attend countless company parties alone. One day, she came home to change and saw me reading. Reading again? Aren't you afraid you'll turn into a bookworm? I was at a good part, so I just gave her a couple of perfunctory replies. She seemed annoyed by my leisure and immediately said, "Get changed. I'm taking you out for some fresh air." I reluctantly got in the car. It wasn't until we arrived that I realized it was Zenith's annual party. Zenith was the largest trading company under Serafina's name. Someone once joked that in San Francisco, if you spent any money, Serafina got a cut. I stayed in the car, telling Serafina, who was holding the door open for me, I don't think it's appropriate for me to go. All the employees and business partners are there. And you think it's appropriate for me to stand here in the cold, holding the door open for you? Seeing me still dragging my feet, she snapped, "Hurry up." The moment I got out of the car, we ran right into Serafina's father, the famous movie star who lived abroad most of the year. Time had only added to his mature charm. He still looked incredibly handsome and suave. He was standing on the steps, smiling at Serafina and me. Before I could even greet him, he spoke first. "Is that you, Peter? It's been so many years, but you and Serafina are still inseparable." I was a bit embarrassed, but Serafina was calm, introducing me with a deadpan expression. "This is Julian Bates." Her father paused for a moment before saying, "My apologies. I mistook you for someone else. When you get old, your eyes start to play tricks on you." He was so handsome and charming, yet when he talked about getting old, he had a disarming frankness. My eyes were glued to him, I couldn't get a single word out. Serafina was so exasperated she almost laughed. "What are you spacing out for? Let's go." I quickly walked beside the legendary actor, Mr. Vincent Vance, muttered a quiet greeting, and we went inside together. Serafina and her father weren't close. They didn't talk much and went their separate ways once inside the venue. Before they parted, Mr. Vance politely asked if I wanted to join him. Serafina shot him down coldly. "You go do your thing. He's with me." As we walked further in, I couldn't help but say, I actually could have gone with him. She gestured to a spot not far ahead. Mr. Vance was already on a sofa, kissing a girl who looked even younger than Serafina. "Are you sure you want to go with him?" I didn't dare say another word. Zenith's annual party was different from any I had seen before. The entire club was booked. People were scattered across different floors, eating, drinking, playing, and socializing without any restrictions. It wasn't until 9 p.m. that everyone would gather in a large hall for Serafina to present awards and draw raffle prizes. I wasn't interested in any of it, but I had read in a tabloid once that Zenith had given away a house as a raffle prize one year. I quietly asked Serafina, "Does everyone who comes in get a number?" She glanced at me. "Want a house? So much for being subtle. Keep dreaming." Peter arrived with Kevin Wu. Serafina had just been pulled to a card table, so I dutifully went to sit on a nearby sofa. Kevin's first words were, "Serafina." I dropped him off. "I've got to go." Without even looking up, Serafina called out, "Where are you going?" Kevin chuckled nervously. "Where could I go? I'm going night fishing." "Who goes night fishing with 3 boats? Your dad called me." "You're not going anywhere tonight. Just stay here and cool off." Kevin wailed, "My dad? Seriously, why would he call you about something like this?" You think I'm not going to go just because you told me not to? He said that, but when someone at the table gave up their seat, he obediently sat down to play mahjong with Serafina and the others. Peter was standing next to Serafina, watching her play. Whatever he pointed at, she played. For a while, she was winning more than she was losing. It led to a lot of teasing from the others. What's this? You two ganging up on us? Kevin was losing the most. He immediately got grumpy. Peter, I'm the one who brought you here. Come stand by me. Peter laughed. No way. You make terrible moves. You'll just blame me when you lose. Kevin lamented, brothers grow up and fly the coop. When you're in trouble, you come crying to me. When something good happens, it's all about your dear Serafina. Everyone burst out laughing, and the teasing continued. Peter's face flushed red with shyness. Serafina, however, sat there calmly, neither joining in nor stopping it. It seemed everyone had forgotten about me, sitting on the sofa in the corner. Half an hour ago, I had probably been the main character in this scene. After all, I was Serafina's first male companion at the annual party. In that short time, the boys who had been trying to talk to me were now bored, playing on their phones, giving me nothing but their cold shoulders. After a long while, I heard a cheer erupt from the table, mixed with Kevin's cry of despair. I'd rather be night fishing. There was a hint of a smile in Serafina's voice as she said, I want one of the corner units with a terrace in your new development. Which of your houses doesn't have a terrace? Serafina replied, none of your business. It's a gift. The looks from everyone around the table immediately turned suggestive. Someone said, looks like Peter's hour of standing here wasn't for nothing. Kevin also chimed in, this is infuriating. I was the one who went to pick him up for you, and now I have to provide the gift too. Serafina, are you a loan shark? Serafina said, you can give him your gift, and I'll give him mine. They're not the same thing. Kevin immediately agreed. Fine. Peter, just come with me to the development later and pick whichever one you like. I'm going to outdo Serafina today. Serafina held a special status among them, few dared to joke with her like that. The others just enjoyed the show. Serafina wasn't annoyed by his retort. She just called out to the sofa, Julian. I stood up amidst the surprised stares of the crowd. Peter and Kevin probably hadn't realized there was another act to this play. For a moment, their expressions were unreadable. Serafina waved me over and pointed at Kevin. Thank Mr. Wu for his generosity. When the floor plans are ready, you can pick one yourself. Kevin was the most straightforward of them all. Whenever Peter and I were in the same room, he was the one who looked the most uncomfortable. But the real culprit, Serafina, was always perfectly composed. She didn't care about the undercurrents between Peter and me. She didn't care about the onlookers' amusement. She was only interested in being the one in control. The feelings of the chess pieces were not her concern. So, after the party ended that night, the answer Peter got when he cornered Serafina to confess his love was probably the same answer she would have given me. I always felt a sense of shared destiny, like when the lips are gone, the teeth will be cold. I, returning from the restroom, happened to overhear what she said to a slightly drunk Peter. This boy she grew up with, who had just poured out his heart for 5 straight minutes without repeating himself. You're only 25. Thinking about marriage, about who to spend the rest of your life with, it's really too early. The things adults said when we were kids were just jokes. They were never meant to be taken seriously. And at this stage, I really haven't considered changing the relationship between us. Peter asked her, have you never liked me? Were you just joking when you used to say you wanted to marry me? I leaned against the wall in the outer room, waiting with Peter for her answer. She was silent for a moment. She had just started to say the word you when Peter cut her off. I won't believe anything you say. I only trust my own feelings. I know you don't have any faith or desire for love or marriage because of what happened with your parents, but I'll prove to you that I'm different from them. Serafina sounded as if he'd hit a nerve, her voice tinged with impatience. I don't need that. I don't need anyone to prove anything to me. Peter's voice cracked as he asked, can I ask you for one thing? Can you please make Julian Bates leave your side? Every time I see him, it hurts so much. You won't give me another chance, but you keep him around. Are you still holding a grudge because when you were in trouble back then, my father not only didn't help, but he kicked you when you were down? Serafina let out a small laugh. Under the circumstances at the time, your father's actions were understandable. Especially since he dotes on you and didn't want you to marry a woman who was about to lose everything. What's wrong with that? Sending you abroad was the only option. So that was the real story behind Peter's trip abroad. A few years ago, Serafina was accused of illegally manipulating the capital markets. It was said that Zenith's financial deficit was in the tens of billions, and a sense of panic swept through the city. No one expected Serafina to survive that storm. In less than 2 years, she not only led Zenith back from the brink of death, but she also expanded her own business empire throughout the entire region. Serafina became a business legend in her own right. I heard Serafina's low voice say, "I was young and foolish back then. I was out of line with you. Don't take it to heart." But I did take it seriously. I always have, Serafina. I know you did too. Otherwise, you wouldn't have kept Julian by your side for so many years. My heart was in my throat. Peter was waiting for her answer, and I was waiting for her verdict. Serafina remained silent. Finally, I heard Peter say, on May 8th of next year, "I'm getting engaged to Holly Hawk. You have to be there." When Serafina pushed open the door, she was furious. I tried to act natural, as if I were just passing by. She pointed at me and I quickly walked toward her. I heard her on the phone with her driver. "Bring the car to the entrance, then you can go home. Come straight to the office tomorrow." That was the first time I ever saw Serafina drive recklessly. Normally, she was a very composed person, always speaking and acting with a steady, unhurried pace. But beneath that civilized exterior, she had such a violent side. I saw the cars around us being left behind, one by one. The trees on both sides of the road flew backward. My back was pressed tightly against the car seat. By the time the car finally stopped, my back was soaked with sweat, and my palms were clammy. But when I looked at my phone, only half an hour had passed. Lookout point at 10:30 p.m., tinged with a rosy hue and hidden among the hills, had an indescribable beauty. I didn't get out of the car. I just watched from inside as Serafina leaned against the window and smoked a whole pack of cigarettes. Then she drove back to Pacific Heights at 80 miles per hour. I knew who Holly Hawk was, the second daughter of the Hawk family, titans of the shipping industry, a notorious party girl in San Francisco. If Serafina was the one person the media didn't dare to report on, then Holly was their darling. All thanks to Holly's penchant for dating celebrities. She dated whoever was hot. Her close male friends were scattered throughout the entire entertainment industry. She was already 34 this year. The entire city's media was waiting to see who could finally tame this woman. And Peter was saying he was getting engaged to her. For a moment, I didn't know whether to call him foolish or clever. If before I had only been guessing at the history between Serafina and Peter, after that night, I knew that none of it was baseless speculation. Serafina and Peter really had been a couple. It wasn't one-sided love or a secret crush. It was a real, genuine love story. Everyone kept their mouths shut, and yet everyone was happy to see it happen. No one ever mentioned it, but no one ever forgot it either. I asked myself, "Julian, are you in way over your head?" There were so many moments when I thought, even if we met because she was attracted to this face, after all these years of knowing and being with each other, I must have at least struck a chord in her heart. I had hoped she would see me differently, but it was just too hard. She was like an obscure term in a medical textbook. Even if I spent all my energy trying to memorize it, I still only half understood. When I woke up the next morning, I heard her on the phone with her executive assistant. "Find out if the Cole family is having cash flow problems." The assistant answered quickly, but I couldn't hear clearly. I only heard Serafina say, "Then why is he in such a hurry to marry off his son? Day deeper. Let me know the second you hear anything." She finished the call and realized I was awake. She came over, felt my forehead, and said, "No fever. You were complaining about being cold all night." I froze for a second, silent. "I had a dream last night. I dreamed of my parents. It's funny. I've never even seen them. but their faces in the dream were so clear. I dreamed we were a family of 3, playing in the snow. But the snow fell harder and harder, until they walked off together and disappeared into the blizzard. In the vast, snowy landscape, only a small version of me was left. Seeing my low spirits, she pointed out the window. It's snowing. It really was snowing outside. A blanket of white covered everything. I've never told anyone that I was abandoned at the orphanage gates on a snowy night. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window looking out. The bay in the snow was breathtakingly beautiful. The heating inside was on full blast, so I didn't feel any cold standing barefoot on the floor. But why was my heart sinking? I felt a chilling sense of abandonment, of being utterly alone. But it was okay. I was saying goodbye every day. I was used to saying goodbye to beautiful things. Every good friend I made at the orphanage who got adopted and then lost contact. The matron of the orphanage falling ill, her body wasting away until she passed in pain. A fledgling high school romance, crushed by the other person's parents before it could even begin. My life seemed to be an endless series of goodbyes. I was always the one left behind. But I really didn't want it to be like this anymore. This year, I spent New Year's with Serafina again. On New Year's Eve, the housekeeper started bustling around early in the day. Around noon, Serafina suddenly asked me, "Do people where you're from eat dumplings on New Year's Eve?" I nodded. She then told the housekeeper, "Let's not make it too complicated. We'll just make some dumplings." To be honest, I didn't have any special feelings about New Year's Eve or the holiday itself. My strongest memory was of the matron, when she was still alive, teaching us how to fold dumplings. Serafina was quite surprised to see how well I made them. Even the housekeeper praised me. "They look much better than mine. Mr. Bates must be from the north, right? You're so good with dough. You know how to make other things?" The housekeeper smiled. "Miss, the noodles you've eaten these past few years were all made by Mr. Bates. Especially the birthday noodles, he makes them so meticulously." That was true, but the number of times Serafina actually ate at home could be counted on one hand. I hadn't cooked for her more than a few times. She nudged me with her elbow. "How come you never mentioned it?" "Because you hate it when people show off." But I could only think that to myself. I didn't have the guts to say it to her face. "Well, you know now, don't you? Consider it a surprise." Just as she was about to say something else, her phone rang. It was Kevin. "Serafina, I've already eaten. My parents are out. Can you organize something for me to do?" Serafina said, "What am I supposed to organize for you?" "Go find Dylan." Because she was holding a dumpling I had just made, Serafina had put the call on speaker. We heard Kevin continue, "Dylan is swamped. He has to arrange the ancestral worship at his family's estate all by himself this year. He can't afford any mistakes, and he has to watch out for troublemakers. He has no time for me." Serafina scoffed. "So what you're saying is I'm the least busy." Kevin chuckled. "You said it, not me. Fine, you plan something. It'll just be me and Julian." Hearing this, Kevin suddenly stammered, "Oh, Jules is there too? Doesn't his school have classes?" Serafina was baffled. "Are you crazy? What school has classes on New Year's Eve?" "Oh, right. Well, you two come over then." I knew what was going on. After Kevin hung up, I said to Serafina, "I think I'll stay home. I want to be at home today." Serafina's brow furrowed. "If you wanted to stay home, why didn't you say so just now? You didn't ask me." She shot me a glare. "Hurry up and get changed. Don't make me wait." When we got there, sure enough, Peter was there. He looked like he had just been crying, sitting next to Kevin without saying a word. Kevin asked me, "Jules, you didn't go back home for the New Year either?" I sidestepped the question. Plane tickets are expensive during the holidays. Serafina gave me a half smile. "You make it sound like I'm mistreating you." Kevin, ever the kind one, immediately tried to smooth things over. "That's how it is during the holidays. One year, I was still hanging out with friends on the mainland on the 29th, and when I wanted to come back, the ticket prices had doubled. As the son of an oil tycoon, he wouldn't care about ticket prices. He was just trying to help me out. It's true what they say, only the kind-hearted feel awkward. The heartless just make others feel awkward." Suddenly, the door was pushed open. Before Kevin could react, he was face to face with Holly Hawk. Holly was leaning on a very familiar-looking young man, standing at the door and greeting the room with a flippant air. I heard Miss Booth and Mr. Wu were here, so I came to say hello. She had been drinking and was a bit unsteady on her feet. When the man with her lifted his face, I realized he was the leader of some wildly popular boy band from overseas. Well, Peter's here too, she said, calling out Peter's name but looking straight at me. She stopped in front of me and said, "Haven't seen you in a few days. You're looking more scholarly than usual, Peter. That foreign education really does wonders." Serafina said just one word, "out." The fury in her voice was enough to send a chill down everyone's spine. Only the drunken woman was oblivious. She even tried to reach out and touch me offensively. The moment she extended her hand, Serafina grabbed it. "Look where you are and look who I am." Holly, emboldened by the alcohol, shot back, "So what if you're Serafina Booth? Let me tell you, don't get too full of yourself. You've been on a roll these past few years, but you can't just dismiss us old money families who've been around for generations." Before she could finish her tirade, 2 bodyguards suddenly appeared behind her. They quickly apologized to Serafina while dragging Holly out. Even as she was being dragged away, Holly didn't shut up. She pointed at the boy who had come in with her and shouted, "You, get over here. What, you can't walk away from a pretty face? Just you wait and see what I do to you tonight." The bodyguards moved even faster. One of them knocked the babbling Holly unconscious and carried her away. The room fell into an awkward silence after the commotion. Serafina's face was dark, and Peter looked pale. The one to break the silence was Kevin. He thought for a long time before he couldn't help but ask Peter, "What did she mean by that last thing she said? What's your relationship with her?" Peter didn't speak, but he started to cry at the question. After a long pause, Kevin said, "Your dad is insane." The Cole family wanted to get into the shipping business. They had 2 choices, either go through Serafina or go through the Hawk family. At this point, everyone understood. The Cole family was testing Serafina. Or rather, Peter was making one last gamble. Looking at the veins popping on Serafina's hand, I thought, "Peter, you probably won the bet. But you lost too." After all, in Serafina's world, there could be no winner but herself. After we went back that night, Serafina became incredibly busy. Somehow, word of what happened on New Year's Eve got out. People joked that the student by Serafina Booth's side was practically a dead ringer for the eldest son of the Cole family. The words were spoken casually, but they hit their mark. On the first day of the new semester, right at the school gate, I met Peter's parents. They recognized me at a glance, came up to me, and introduced themselves. I was actually quite busy with my studies, but seeing their earnestness, I couldn't bring myself to refuse. Recalling that moment of compassion now, I'm certain it was one of the biggest regrets of my life. We found a nearby coffee shop. They talked non-stop about how their family used to live on the mainland, how Peter had a twin brother, but when they left, they only had paperwork for 3 people, so they had to leave one child behind with a relative. About how I was the one they were supposed to take, but I got sick right before they left, and they were afraid I wouldn't handle the move well, so they swapped me with my brother. About how they actually went back many times later, but their relatives insisted that I had gotten sick and died. The mother sitting across from me was crying her eyes out. It's hard to describe how I felt. Was it confusion, fear, or just numbness? At least I had no tears. I told them calmly, "I grew up in an orphanage. You probably have the wrong person." The mother insisted, "I couldn't be wrong. You are my son." No mother would mistake her own son. The feeling of bewilderment in my heart suddenly settled. I said to her, no mother would abandon her own son. She kept holding my hand, apologizing, saying they had no choice back then, that if they hadn't left, none of them would have made it out. Saying she left money for her brother, thinking I would be well taken care of. Saying she couldn't sleep a full night for years after they first arrived. I looked out the window. It was snowing again. I thought of the recurring dream I always had, of my parents I could never find in the snow. Their faces, so clear in my dreams, were now a complete blank. It was a snowy day when I was left at the orphanage gates, too. The matron said my face was purple from the cold. If she hadn't been heading to the morning market that day, I probably would have frozen to death. The sobbing started again. There are many kinds of children in an orphanage, each with their own misfortune. But even among the unfortunate, some are a little luckier, like the ones who got lost, because they have the best chance of being found. Many kids don't stay long. Once their information is registered, their parents find them soon after. Those who were abandoned after they were old enough to remember have a glimmer of hope, because the people who left them promised to come back once things got better. The most pitiful are the ones abandoned at birth. They can only wait to be adopted. But foster families are not always easy to be in. Some kids get sent back 3 times. After that, the boy never went to another foster family. After his matron fell ill and passed away, he left the orphanage. Luckily, the matron had arranged everything for him before she died. With his orphan certificate and some subsidies, he stumbled his way to where he was today. He was doing okay. Since you found me, you must know about my relationship with Serafina. I'm graduating soon and will be returning to the mainland. Please don't create any more complications. That was the last thing I said to them. When I rushed back to Pacific Heights, Serafina was already home. Her tone wasn't friendly. Why are you so late today? The test ran late. You're busier than I am. I pretended not to hear the sarcasm in her voice and just asked, want some dumplings? No, I just came back to get something. I'm leaving soon. There were only 3 months left until the May 8th date Peter had mentioned. Time was running out for me and for Serafina too. I was busy trying to graduate early. Serafina was busy opening up a new shipping route. She never hid her phone calls from me. I didn't know if it was because she trusted me too much or simply didn't see me as a threat. Lately, I often heard her talking to Peter. The calls weren't long, and she rarely spoke, but she always answered. One night, I woke up suddenly. Serafina was on the balcony on the phone. In the darkness, her profile had an unusual tenderness. I heard her say, "Don't be afraid." I suddenly remembered the first time she brought me back to Pacific Heights. I thought I was prepared when I got into her car. But when the moment came, I was still incredibly nervous. She was in a lot of pain then, but she still took a moment to comfort me. Don't be afraid. So, it turned out nothing was ever truly just for me. Even though I had long understood there was no love at first sight, only a similar face. But I once held a sliver of hope that, through our time together, she would truly see me. See the hardworking, confident, and resilient Julian Bates. The Julian Bates who fell for her at first sight. But no. So, for a story that started on a false premise, I should never have expected a perfect ending. When Peter first came back, Serafina was cold to him. I thought I was close to winning, but now I understood. Her coldness wasn't because she didn't love him anymore. It was her way of getting justice for the cold shoulder she had once received. She put up a wall of indifference just to lick her wounds. Finally, she hung up the phone and came back to bed, bringing the chill of the night with her. She liked to hold me when she slept. As she moved closer, I opened my eyes. She jumped, startled, and whispered, "You're awake? Let's break up." She gave me a puzzled look, then lay down on her own. What's gotten into you in the middle of the night? The darkness is a breeding ground for courage. As soon as she finished speaking, I said it again. Let's break up. I'm moving back to my dorm tomorrow. She slapped the switch on the bedside lamp, turning it on. In that instant, her face was magnified in front of me. I was incredibly glad I had said what I said, because if I had to look at that face, I probably wouldn't have been able to get a single word out. Take it back right now, and I'll pretend I didn't hear it. I stared at her and said word for word, "But you did hear it." She probably realized I was serious. We stayed in that strange, tense position at the head of the bed for a long time. Finally, she asked, "Why?" I said without any pretense, "Because you're getting engaged. I have no interest in being the third person in someone else's relationship." Hearing that reason, she seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. She said, "This has nothing to do with you. Whether I get engaged or not won't affect our relationship. Just stay put and behave." Cold, arrogant, and ruthless. In that moment, I even felt that she didn't love Peter either. Nothing to do with me? How could it have nothing to do with me? I didn't want to argue with her, so I just closed my eyes. She probably thought she had given me a reason. So the next day, when she saw me packing my bags, she flew into a rage. What are you doing? Didn't I tell you yesterday? My engagement won't affect our relationship. No one else has ever lived in this house, and no one else ever will. You can just stay here peacefully. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm not so pathetic that just being by your side is enough. Serafina's face turned cold. What's that supposed to mean? It's been 4 years. Even if I'm just a plaything can have its own will, right? After all, before I was your plaything, I was a normal person. Who said you were a plaything? Julian, are you speaking with a clear conscience? Maybe because I had never really fought with her before. She seemed genuinely furious. Who the hell gives their plaything houses and gifts all the time? Whose plaything leaves their master at home all the time? I have to schedule time to see you? Who keeps a plaything with such a temper, and for 4 years at that? You don't actually think you're a very competent plaything, do you? In the end, she managed to piss herself off, opened the door, and left. 5 minutes later, I heard a car drive out of the garage. About half an hour later, I had packed all my things. The driver was surprised to see me with a large suitcase. Mr. Bates, where are you off to? I didn't dare tell him the truth. I'm just taking some books back to school. The last 6 months are all exams, and there's too much to carry back and forth. He immediately came forward to help me put it in the trunk. All right, I'll help you carry it into the school. Thank you, I appreciate it. Serafina didn't call me that night. I found out later that she was so angry she didn't even go home that day, so she didn't know I had left. After she found out, my phone didn't stop ringing. She didn't have time to hound me every day, but her hapless junior assistant called me 3 times a day. He never said much, just asked if I was coming back and if I needed a driver. Even though I repeatedly refused, saying Serafina and I had broken up and I wasn't coming back, the assistant maintained his professional demeanor. I'm just relaying Ms. Booth's message. You can either accept or refuse. That was Serafina. Even when she was trying to make peace, it came with an air of superiority. Of course, maybe she didn't think she was making peace at all. After all, in her mind, she hadn't done anything wrong. I was surprised when both Kevin Wu and Dylan Wong called me. Kevin was always straightforward. The moment I answered, he got right to the point. Jules, are you and Serafina fighting? I told you you're just too nice. You've spoiled her these past few years. It's time you taught her a lesson. We're not fighting. We just broke up. He probably didn't expect me to be so blunt. He was at a loss for words. After a moment, he said, She can be a bit much, I know, but she's been really good to you. I didn't want to hear it, so I cut him off. Kevin, I have my own judgment on this. Please tell Serafina to have her assistant stop calling me. Otherwise, I'm blocking her. Kevin definitely didn't pass on the message, or if he did, it didn't work. Dylan called me right after I hung up on the assistant again. Of all Serafina's friends, I had the least contact with Dylan. Neither of us were particularly warm people, we usually just nodded and said hello. So I was quite surprised by his call, especially when he asked, I'm on my way to your school. Are you free to meet? It was the same coffee shop where I had met Peter's parents. The moment I walked in, the memory of that day came flooding back, and I couldn't help but feel a bit distracted. Dylan said, It seems you're not as heartless as Serafina says you are. Are you here as Serafina's messenger? I never thought I'd be so honored. He smiled, not offended by my sarcastic tone. Actually, there's something I'm curious about, so I came to ask you. Go ahead. I haven't told Serafina about this yet, but I'm sure she'll find out sooner or later. She asked us to keep an eye on the Cole family, and I found out that Peter's parents met with you a while ago. May I ask why? I looked into Dylan's eyes. He met my gaze steadily. He knew. He was just here to confirm it. They said I'm Peter Cole's twin brother. Dylan's eyes scanned my face for a moment. It's not impossible. Even with your completely different styles and demeanors, you two still look 60 or 70% alike. But we have no plans to acknowledge it. Dylan was a little surprised. Why? All it takes is a DNA test. Exactly. Such a simple thing. Why do you think they haven't done it? I knew from the moment they came to me that they had no intention of officially recognizing me yet. It was only because of my relationship with Serafina that I became a useful backup plan for them. How could a couple who could heartlessly abandon their sick child truly cry for him? They had actually seen me on their own before. They probably already found a way to confirm my identity back then. They're only showing up now because the Cole family wants to get into the shipping business. They're worried the Hollyhock connection won't work out, and they don't want to lose the Serafina connection either. There was a hint of admiration in Dylan's voice. You're very perceptive, but they're even shrewder than you think. They want to play both sides. So they wanted Holly's ships and Serafina's shipping routes. The greed of man is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Serafina doesn't know about your relationship with them. She really was planning to get engaged to Peter first. A single shipping route is a small price to pay to honor her past with him. Even if it wasn't Serafina, the rest of us who grew up together couldn't just stand by and watch Peter marry a scumbag. So if it wasn't Serafina, were you going to marry him? Or was Kevin? He was speechless for a moment. It was obvious. Dylan's own family situation was complicated. Getting married would just make him a target. He hadn't even had a girlfriend in years. Rumors were starting to spread that he was gay. And the Wu family was out of the question. Even in high society, there were different tiers. The Wu family, at the top of the food chain, would never form a marriage alliance with the Cole family. I let out a cold laugh. So the only one who could ever marry Peter was always Serafina, right? You just came here today to test my attitude on his behalf. I stood up and faced Dylan. Go back and tell your good buddy that I don't want his parents, and I don't want his woman. It wasn't until after Dylan left that I truly understood something. No one ever thought that Serafina and I would have a future together, including Serafina herself. That's why she thought it didn't matter who she got engaged to, or even married. It had nothing to do with me. All she wanted to maintain was the relationship between us. What she was afraid of was change. Not because it was me. She couldn't even give me the most basic respect. Without respect, how could there be liking, let alone love? Breaking free from a twisted relationship devoid of respect and love was probably a good thing. The day Serafina showed up at my dorm, it had been 2 weeks since I left Pacific Heights. Although we had both been busy over the years, apart from her recent trip abroad, we had rarely gone so long without seeing each other. It's also possible that my recent withdrawal had been successful, because seeing her today, she felt a little like a stranger. She was waiting for me at the entrance to my dorm building, the setting sun casting a golden glow over her. She squinted in my direction as I walked toward her and said, "You're back. I came to take you home." After all this trouble, she finally realized I might actually be angry, so she condescended to come find me. This was the arrogant Serafina, always arrogant in every moment. Sometimes I wished she would bow that proud head of hers for me. Other times I thought maybe then she wouldn't be Serafina anymore. I opened the door to my dorm, and she followed me in. It was a 2-person suite with a shared living room. Calling it a living room was a stretch. It was just a small alcove, barely big enough for a small coffee table. The coffee table was cluttered with books. She pursed her lips and asked, "Are you used to living here?" "It's fine." When I opened the door to my room, her expression seemed even more conflicted. The room was Spartan, the bed unmade. I had nightmares all night, lost in a vast expanse of snow, unable to find my way. I, who rarely cried, had cried myself to exhaustion in my dream. I ended up oversleeping and only had time to brush my teeth before rushing to class. I turned to her and said, "It's not really set up for guests. Want to go out for a coffee?" She shook her head, standing at the door, looking a little lonely, especially after hearing my words. "How long are you planning on staying here?" That was something Serafina would say. Even when showing a hint of sadness, she was still as forceful as ever. I shrugged. "They kick you out after graduation. Why didn't you go to the apartment? The environment there is much better, isn't it? I remember it's also very close to the school. School is more convenient. The last semester schedule is packed. Living in the dorm is the easiest." She let out a strange laugh. "It feels like I'm the one making way for your studies. After all, it's an hour's drive from here to Pacific Heights. This was probably the first time she had ever driven to my school herself. I played along with her. Yes, the path to truth always requires martyrs. She stepped closer to me. I lowered my head slightly to meet her upturned gaze. Even so, her presence still carried a natural sense of pressure. I will not be a martyr. I looked at her. You misunderstood. I'm the martyr. I am the martyr to your education in love. Serafina probably never expected me to talk about love with her. Her shocked expression made me feel like I had said something truly absurd. I never thought about breaking up with you, Julian. From the very beginning, I never thought about breaking up. And you never thought about truly being with me, did you? Her brow furrowed. What does being together mean? For the past 4 years, unless there was an emergency, I came home every day, no matter how busy I was. Isn't that being together? I haven't had anyone else by my side but you. Maybe my understanding is flawed. You're with me because I suit you in some ways, but when it comes to marriage, I'm not even in your consideration set, am I? It was like we were on completely different wavelengths today. No, we had never been on the same wavelength. She said honestly, I'm not considering marrying anyone right now. The reason I didn't tell you about the engagement with Peter is because it doesn't count. I just don't want him to marry Holly Hawk. But once you get engaged to him, I become the third person in your relationship. The despised third person. No. Before that, I will make it clear to him. His parents need a marriage alliance to ensure the business partnership goes smoothly, so I will give them that assurance. After that, I will help Peter until he can truly break free from his parents' control. You have it all planned out. I wish you success, and congratulations to Mr. Cole on getting his wish. She pressed closer. And you? I picked up a book from the table and said with a smile, I wish myself academic success. Her face turned ashen in an instant. She didn't say another word, just turned and left. After that, I didn't see Serafina or hear from her for a long time. But news about her was swirling around our social circles. The story of her and Peter spread through every corner of San Francisco. Although the major newspapers didn't dare to report it, there were always gossip columns spreading the news through other online platforms. That was my busiest period. I was busy graduating early from my undergrad program, getting accepted into a graduate program on the mainland, and preparing for the sailboat race in May. The first 2 were long planned, I just had to follow the steps. But participating in the sailboat race was definitely not in my plans. It had been almost 2 years since my last race. I was surprised the organizer still remembered me. Mr. Bates, are you interested in participating in our Ocean Cup this season? I remember your results were excellent before. You won 3 championships. I was about to refuse when he continued, this season is different from the usual. It's a championship race. All the previous season champions are participating. It's going to be even more exciting than before. What do you think? Interested? It was Serafina who taught me how to sail. It was during our first year together. Serafina was launching a new shipping route. For the maiden voyage, she unconventionally chose to lead the way in her own sailboat. The wind and waves were particularly strong that day. Her boat cut through them, forging ahead. Countless people were captivated by her spirit that day, myself included. When she returned from the sea, her custom-made gear was barely wet, but her hair was a mess from the wind. As I was tidying her hair, she gave a rare, bright smile and asked, "Did you see that last wave?" I sailed right over it. I saw. You were incredible. The organizer was still waiting for my answer. His question brought me back to the present. I agreed. He seemed thrilled. That's great. I remember you still have a sailboat in our care here. You can come check it out when you register. After that maiden voyage, I had gone with Serafina to a few sailboat races. As a cheerleader, of course. Then one time, she saw me watching intently and asked, "Want to learn? I know a guy who's also really good at it." I already knew about Peter by then, and I knew the guy she was talking about was him. A sense of defiance rose in me. "Yes, I want to learn," I said. A great teacher produces a great student. Serafina genuinely wanted to teach me, and I was determined to learn. Turns out I actually had a knack for it. It wasn't long before I graduated from her lessons. Serafina even took me to a few races. Later, as her work got busier, she left this hobby behind. But I kept at it. I even went on to participate in many races on my own and won some awards. A few days later, I finally finished up my work. I went to the club to see my sailboat. It was a gift from Serafina. She said every person who rides the wind and waves needs their own weapon. From a distance, I saw the sailboat with the J printed on it. The young guy who did the maintenance actually still remembered me and waved. "Mr. Bates, I figured you'd be coming by these days. What a coincidence, we just brought it out and there you are. It's been a while. I want to get it serviced. I'm participating in the club's championship race in a few days." He replied, "It's already been serviced. It gets maintained every quarter along with Ms. Booth's boat. It was just done at the beginning of this month." "Great, thanks. I'm going to the manager's office to register." The manager was as enthusiastic as ever. He took out the registration form and asked if I had taken the boat out for a spin. "Mr. Bates, you haven't been here in a long time. You should get reacquainted with it." I smiled apologetically. "I'm afraid I can't today. I didn't bring any gear." The manager was surprised. "Ms. Booth has new gear prepared for you every quarter. We keep it in storage for you. I can have someone show you?" I started to regret my decision. I was trying to say goodbye. But everything in my life in this city, outside of my studies, was inextricably linked to Serafina. Just as I left the manager's office, I ran into Kevin Wu. You can read every emotion on his face. I remembered how Serafina once described him. It's a good thing he was born into the Wu family. If he and Dylan switched places, he wouldn't survive past the 3rd episode. He had some good news recently. He smiled and greeted me. "Jules, what brings you here?" The manager answered for me. "Mr. Bates is planning to participate in our championship race. Will Mr. Wu be coming to cheer him on?" Kevin pointed a finger at the manager. "Just don't go snitching to Serafina every day. I'm heading out to sea today." The manager said with a straight face, "Today is not a good day to go to sea." "Why not?" The manager looked distraught. "Definitely not today. Mr. Bates is here, so how could Ms. Booth not know? If she finds out I knew and didn't report it, will I even be able to keep this club open?" Kevin was at a loss for words. When Kevin wasn't looking, the manager shook his phone at me. I glanced down. He had texted me 2 words. "High-stakes poker." I understood instantly. No wonder Kevin was always trying to go out to sea. Once you're in international waters, you can gamble on whatever you want, however you want, with no restrictions. I never thought he had that hobby. No wonder Serafina wouldn't let him go. His card skills were mediocre at best. I'd never seen him win, even in their friendly games, let alone competing against professional gamblers on the high seas. Kevin's phone kept ringing. He glanced at it distractedly, then looked at me. He asked cautiously, "You're not really going to tell Serafina, are you?" I said half-jokingly, "I won't go out of my way to tell her." Before he could breathe a sigh of relief, I continued, "But I can't be sure if Serafina has someone watching me. You know how she can be a little crazy sometimes. If she really is watching me, your location is probably already compromised." As soon as I finished speaking, Kevin's phone rang again. He glanced at it and immediately jumped up. "Holy crap, Jules. I take back everything I said about you two making up. I'm starting to think Serafina is seriously messed up. She must have someone watching you. She just texted me asking what I'm doing at the club." I almost burst out laughing. I didn't have the heart to tell him the manager probably told Serafina the moment he arrived. However, I wasn't laughing for long. I had a reasonable suspicion that Serafina sent a mass text, because I saw she had texted me, "What are you doing at the club?" She really was a control freak. Kevin bounced around like a monkey and walked away. He was probably too mad to think straight. I didn't reply. I just told the manager that from now on, when Serafina's boat was being serviced, not to include mine. The manager looked surprised, but he was clearly a man of the world and didn't say anything more. But just as I left the club, I ran into Serafina. The manager really wasn't a talkative person. All his talking was done on his phone. It had been about 2 months since I'd last seen her. When we first broke up, I counted the days. Lately, I'd finally calmed down. Serafina's first words were, "You're so busy, and you still thought to come here? If you're going to talk to me properly, then talk. If not, I'm leaving. She actually looked a little hurt. Wow, she must have taken some new classes or something. I was just passing by. The manager said you were here, so I came to see. Well, I'm leaving too. You go on with your business. I took 2 steps forward. As I passed her, I saw her hand twitch slightly, but in the end, she did nothing. She suddenly called my name. I know about you and Peter being brothers. I know you don't want anything to do with them. If his father comes looking for you again, tell me. I'll handle it. Hearing this, I turned to look at her. How do you know I don't want to fight for it? If you wanted to fight for it, you wouldn't have left me. I have much more money than they do. But your money is yours. If they are my biological parents, then their money should be mine someday. So you came here today to tell me not to compete with Peter? She was dumbfounded. Do you med students misinterpret things this badly? You're not going to misdiagnose someone, are you? No. People lie, but symptoms don't. I had long stopped holding out any hope for Serafina, especially when I found out that while she was trying to win me back, she was also preparing for her engagement ceremony with Peter. She probably wasn't trying to have her cake and eat it too. But in her eyes, marriage might just be a means of maintaining stability. She couldn't let go of her childhood connection, nor could she bring herself to let me go completely. She was trying to waver between 2 ends that could never be balanced. She would likely end up with nothing. At the very least, she had already lost me as a bargaining chip. And after the news broke that Hollyhock had taken Peter to a private island for 2 days and 1 night, Serafina's attitude became crucial. After all, the whole city knew that Serafina was planning to get engaged to Peter. This wasn't new news. It's hard to keep a secret when a socialite buys a luxury yacht for an engagement party. Serafina didn't make a statement, but I heard Peter waited for her at her company for 2 days and never saw her. At this critical juncture, Peter's parents, my biological parents, found me. This would probably be the last time I saw them before leaving the city, so I agreed. I never expected them to take me to the sanctuary for dinner. I also never expected Peter's mother to be a vegetarian. She said with a bitter smile, "After I left you on the mainland, I heard you were gone not long after. I've been a vegetarian ever since." I listened to her words with a blank expression, feeling absolutely nothing. What does being a vegetarian prove? The vegetarian dishes here were so expensive that 1 plate could feed a normal family for 3 meals. Your father and I went to the orphanage where you used to live to ask about you. It seems they moved and some of the files were lost, but we still heard a few things. I said bluntly, if you have something to ask, just ask me. Who would know more than the person who lived it? Peter's mother said cautiously, I heard that people wanted to adopt you before. Why didn't you go? I smiled. People here are so indirect. I've been here for so long and I'm still not used to it. If I'm not mistaken, you're asking why I was sent back 3 times, right? The first time was because the family couldn't have a son. They said they wanted a boy to bring them a grandson. 3 days after the paperwork was done, she found out she was pregnant. Less than 3 months later, a blood test showed it was a boy, so they quickly sent me back, saying I wasn't the reason, it was just their fate. The second time was a rural family. They had a son, but he was a bit slow, and their living conditions were terrible. I was hungry 8 out of 10 days I was there. The matron found out during a follow-up visit and forced them to process the return. The third time was a working-class family. Sounds okay, right? But the man of the house was a little off. He was always touching me. When his wife found out, she beat me up and sent me back. Peter's parents, sitting across from me, looked genuinely sad hearing this. But it was just a little sadness. Even a stranger would feel sad hearing this story. It was, after all, a tragedy. Your mother and I have failed you. This was the first time I had heard Peter's father speak. Even saying such words, he seemed devoid of emotion. Is there something you need from me? I'm actually quite busy. Peter's mother wiped her tears. Your father and I want you to come home and live with us. You've suffered so much out there. You should be with your mother and father. Couldn't help but scoff. One son can't secure Serafina, but there's a convenient spare who has some connection to her. You guys really don't waste a second, do you? Is that what you think of your mother? That's what you're doing. As I walked out, I thought to myself, Is there any genuine emotion in this world? If even blood ties can be fake, what is real? But for me, it was a good thing. No one could stop me from leaving now. If I ever hesitated for a fleeting moment because of a possible sliver of family connection, at this moment, I was finally free with no love to hold me back. I ran into Dylan on my way out. He was surprised to see me and started to greet me. I stopped him before he could speak. No need for pleasantries. I'm leaving. Take care. Honestly, I was getting tired of these chance encounters. I truly felt that this place might not be for me. It was too small. So small it was suffocating. I never expected my early graduation to go so smoothly. If I had known, I wouldn't have agreed to participate in the sailboat race. I could have left a month earlier. When I used this as an excuse with the manager, he immediately said, "Isn't this a good thing? You can use this time to train hard and win the championship." When you look back, the last gift you gave yourself at Cal was the sailboat race championship. How cool is that? This manager had the potential to be a cult leader. I was convinced almost the second he finished speaking. Maybe life needs moments like these to prove yourself, to prove that your journey was not in vain. I trained intensively for a whole month. When I looked in the mirror, I felt like I was 2 shades darker. During my last training session, the manager was reviewing my recent data and said, "I told you everything happens for a reason. If you just maintain this level, the championship is yours." I had been competitive at first, but after a month of training, my mindset had become much more peaceful. My studies were so demanding that I rarely had the chance to fully immerse myself in a hobby. For the past 20-something years, I felt like I had always been busy. Sailing was the only hobby I had developed without any ulterior motives. Oh wait, there was one. The reason I wanted to get better was to make Serafina see me. On the day of the race, I was in top form. It wasn't until after it was over that I found out Peter had participated too. The race was sponsored by Kevin Wu. Peter and I finished at almost the exact same time. But the championship was awarded to Peter. I heard Kevin say it was his engagement gift to Peter. In that moment, I just felt completely deflated. What you strive for with all your might is just a toy in someone else's hands. The manager stood beside me, looking disappointed. "We all thought you two finished at the same time. We actually prepared 2 trophies, but Mr. Wu didn't agree. It doesn't matter anymore. I enjoyed the process. See you around, Mr. Lee." Probably not. The day I left San Francisco was May 8th. What a coincidence to run into that day. I didn't leave empty-handed. I sold the apartment and the gold Serafina had given me. The things I didn't have time to sell, I shipped back to the mainland. The fireworks over the bay burned all night long. I took a ferry to Oakland first, then a flight. I had never seen such beautiful fireworks, and I knew I would probably never love someone that much again. After returning to the mainland, I changed all my contact information. With a recommendation from a university professor, I continued my graduate studies at a top university there. My education at Cal was undoubtedly excellent, and my hard work could not be ignored. I quickly gained my advisor's trust. My graduate advisor was a serious man, but he had a true passion for research. Many attending physicians in hospitals and engineers in pharmaceutical companies had been his students. He once asked me, "Do you want to go into a hospital or a pharmaceutical company?" I used to think I wanted to do clinical work, but as I continued my studies, I discovered another path. "I want to do experiments with you, Professor." He laughed. "You've chosen the worst option. Sometimes we spend our whole lives on an experiment, and it doesn't even amount to a stepping stone. That's okay. At least I can help those who come after me avoid some dead ends." My advisor looked up from his busy experiments and glanced at me. "I have a project abroad next year. Think about whether you want to join me. You can do your PhD directly with me." I didn't hesitate for a second. "Yes, I want to go." He was surprised. "You're not even going to ask where? Or what the project is?" I shook my head. "No need to ask." The following spring, my professor, 2 other graduate students, and I flew to New Jersey. The lab was funded by a Chinese pharmaceutical company, but the equipment was provided by a foreign team. We couldn't take the equipment back to China, and we had to share our future research findings with other teams. My advisor said, Sometimes the path to truth is rugged, but just having a path to walk on is a miracle. But he probably didn't expect it to be so rugged. The first year, all our experiments failed, but luckily we still had a sufficient budget. The second year, our experiments stalled, and our budget was cut in half. By the third year, we finally had a small breakthrough, but the Chinese pharmaceutical company suddenly decided to cut our funding. This was a fatal blow. The lab equipment, the consumables. Every day we operated, our costs increased. During that time, all 3 of our stipends were cut. My advisor's focus shifted from the experiments to making calls to secure funding. He had a high standing in the medical community, and many were willing to make small, friendly donations. But it was just a drop in the bucket. No one wanted to take a risk on an experiment that hadn't produced results in 3 years. Even though all 4 of us believed that with 2 more years, we would definitely succeed. But confidence can't be used as collateral for a loan. One night, coming out of the lab, I overheard my advisor on the phone, preparing to sell his house back in China. He was smoking as he said, "I have to sell it. These kids followed me here, and they can barely afford to eat. I'm just a single old man, but they're different. They came from top universities, all for me. It's not a big deal if the experiment fails, but I can't let them end up with neither fame nor fortune." I listened in silence. The environment for scientific research wasn't great, whether in China or abroad. My advisor was already a giant in his field, but even he had moments of such difficulty. I watched him chain smoke, one cigarette but after another at his feet. Suddenly, I made a decision. The next morning, I told my professor a Cal alumnus wanted to make a donation and got the lab's public account information. I transferred all the money from the sale of the apartment Serafina had given me. It was just enough to cover the lab's expenses for 6 months. My advisor was surprised, but he didn't ask any questions. After he sold his house in China, he terminated all cooperation with the Chinese pharmaceutical company. Luckily, they knew they were in the wrong and didn't make things difficult, only signing a supplementary agreement. And my advisor decided to switch from a profit-sharing model with the foreign lab to a high-cost rental model. Under these circumstances, our budget became extremely tight. But the good thing was we were finally free from anyone's control. We could control the entire experimental process. The day the experiment resumed, my advisor had us all swear an oath. A breakthrough within 6 months, results within a year. If we can't produce results, we're all going back to China to work in pharmaceuticals. We didn't dare to be angry, nor did we dare to speak. Everyone buried their heads in their work. To be honest, during that time, we all started to doubt ourselves. My senior lab mate, while diligently washing test tubes, was questioning whether he had chosen the wrong career. I was simpler. I just suspected I was born into the wrong life. 7 days before the 6-month deadline, my lab mate was on cell watching duty. At 5 a.m., his cheers echoed through the entire lab. We all woke up from our various corners of the lab. We all rushed to the petri dish. Even my usually calm advisor excitedly said, "We did it." After the breakthrough, things suddenly became incredibly smooth. By the 10th month, we were already writing our results report. Our group finally had some free time to go shopping in a New Jersey mall. My advisor waved his hand magnanimously. "Everyone buy some new clothes. People will be at the airport to greet us when we get back. Don't all look like you just escaped a disaster." Before we left, I saw a clothing brand that I remembered Serafina owning a similar piece from. As the thought crossed my mind, I was surprised. I hadn't thought about her in a very, very long time. Time really is the best medicine. We returned to China with a mass-producible drug, and the reception we received was completely different. The pharmaceutical company that had previously refused to fund us was now frequently contacting my advisor. We all said resentfully that we would sign with anyone but them. But they offered to recognize all our previous expenses and give us the highest possible patent fee. We were all ready to bow down to the evil forces. But a couple of days later, my advisor said happily, "I've been in talks with a pharmaceutical company from San Francisco these past 2 days. Although it's not very old, they're loaded. Julian, you should come with me to meet them tonight. I'm actually more inclined to go with them. Ever since I heard the company was from San Francisco, I felt a sense of unease. When I actually saw that the person was Serafina, I calmed down. We hadn't seen each other in over 3 years. She seemed even more silent than before. During the dinner, the 2 pharmaceutical executives she brought with her talked nonstop, but she remained silent. I was reminded of the year we first met. She was like that then, too. Even though she was the one in charge, she always managed to seem detached. But today seemed different. There was a persistent sense of anxiety in her brow that she couldn't shake. I stopped looking at her, but then I suddenly heard her voice. "Does Mr. Julian Bates have any thoughts?" Everyone at the table was stunned. My advisor gave me a puzzled look. He took over for me. "Ms. Booth, our Julian is a technical person. He's not very good with words." Serafina said directly, "Yes, he's always been good at offending people." Now my advisor's expression turned to one of utter disbelief. He texted me under the table. "Your ex-girlfriend? Can we sign this? She's not here for revenge, is she?" I replied with a deadpan expression. "Ex-sugar mama." My advisor's face cracked. The 2 people across from us who were there to facilitate the talks also started to squirm. Serafina said directly, "Let me talk to Julian alone, and I'll give you another 10% off the patent fee." My advisor didn't say another word, just grabbed his briefcase and left. As he reached the door, his conscience kicked in, and he sent me a text. "My dear apprentice, this is our turf. Some out-of-towner can't stir up any trouble." I wonder if he felt guilty sending that message. Actually, when I first returned to the mainland, Serafina had tried to contact me. But when I opened my old messaging app, it was filled with me asking her, "Are you coming home tonight?" There were almost no replies. It was as if I could see through those words to the me who was always waiting, full of hope, yet so humble. The last thing I did before changing my phone number was text Dylan Wong. I asked him to pass on a message for me. "I'm not coming back." It was my final answer to her, and the final closure for myself. I couldn't find love in a relationship that lacked even respect. So love and passion were bound to fade in such a relationship. I didn't get engaged to Peter. The fireworks on the day you left weren't for me. Things that once felt so important now seemed trivial. I smiled and said nonchalantly, "Oh, really? It's been so long. I don't even remember there being fireworks that day." She stared at me, her gaze unwavering. "It doesn't matter. My new harbor was completed at the beginning of this year. From now on, every fireworks show there will be for you." "You're joking, Ms. Booth. This place is a world away from San Francisco. I'm afraid I won't have the pleasure of seeing them. Then I can come here. Julian, as long as you like it." This time I really did laugh. "Serafina, I'm afraid that won't work. We have a fireworks ban here." She always pursed her lips when she was unhappy, and she did so now. She gave a helpless smile and then conceded, "Julian, I'm out of ideas. Can you teach me what to do, please?" When I returned with the signed contract that day, I had become the golden boy in my advisor's eyes. I did some research on this Serafina Booth when I got back. Turns out she's a big deal in San Francisco. I heard she's the one. My advisor gave a thumbs up. I had just pulled an all-nighter and was in no mood for gossip. I said wearily, "You didn't even do a background check on her before talking business, and you just left me with her?" My advisor chuckled. "Do you think I'm that reckless? I just saw her phone's lock screen. It was a picture of you." He weighed the contract in his hand with satisfaction and said to the others, "Your junior lab mate sold his soul for this. Let's go celebrate tonight and pay tribute to his love life." My advisor glanced at me and continued, "With our kind of work schedule, any love that can still blossom has to be true love." This group really went out to party without any regard for my well-being. After dinner, they insisted on going to karaoke. I really wasn't in the mood, so I went back to the lab after eating. My advisor was surprised to see me. He was furious. "What are you doing back here at this hour? Didn't you run into anyone special at karaoke?" I came back to check on the cells. He continued his tirade, "What cells are so dependent on you? You're almost 30. How can you be so clueless? This lab, the 4 of us combined, are almost 150 years old, and not a single one of us is in a relationship." I was a bit speechless. "In that case, shouldn't you be leading by example? After all, you're the one pulling up our average age. Don't even start. No one even sets me up on blind dates anymore. But you have a ready-made option right here, don't you? It was only then that I caught his drift. I asked, "You invited Serafina to karaoke?" He nodded. Yes. She texted me very politely asking where we were going after dinner. I figured someone else was paying, so I sent her the room number. Are you that short on cash for a private room? It's fine. Every penny counts, right? The new project is starting next month. I have to prepare, don't I? One of my lab mates sent me a text. Jules? SOS. Can you come over now? The CEO of Zenith, Ms. Booth, is drunk. She's just sitting there without moving, and it's kind of scary. I looked at the picture he sent. Serafina was leaning against the sofa with her eyes closed. She didn't look that drunk. Just put her in a taxi. I've got stuff to do. The reply came immediately. Jules, this is the client. The big client. Can I give her your number? She said she needs your permission. Fine. When Serafina called, her voice was tinged with fatigue. I could still hear the deafening music in the background. She must have called me the second she got my number and stepped out of the room. Where are you? Why aren't you at the get-together with your colleagues? I saw they were all here. Do you need something? Not really, I just wanted to see you. Are you at the lab? Can I come over now? No. After our breakthrough, getting our projects approved and funded became much easier. My advisor, seeing that I hadn't budged on the Serafina issue, didn't push it anymore, just occasionally sighed when he looked at me. At this point, I was only one final report away from finishing my PhD. Serafina's presence seemed insignificant. I commuted between my dorm and the lab every day, occasionally bumping into her. Luckily, she was still very busy and didn't spend much time here. The following spring, I returned to New Jersey with my advisor again. In between, to secure funding, we flew to San Francisco for a presentation. It was my first time back in years. I once thought I would never set foot in this city again. When I saw that the person receiving us was Dylan Wong, I almost cursed out loud. Dylan walked up to me smoothly and greeted me. My advisor looked at me in surprise. You're quite the player in San Francisco, huh? Then what were we doing scrimping and saving in New Jersey for? I whispered in his ear, "This is Serafina's friend. Didn't you tell me you did your due diligence?" He was speechless. You were the one who said to compare several companies. Out of respect for you, I didn't even choose Ms. Booth's company, even though her offer was higher. Dylan overheard most of it from the side and chuckled. No need to choose, Professor Lee. The next 5 companies on the list are all ours. He then turned to me and said, Julian, welcome back. Long time no see. Passing by a storefront, I paused for a moment. Dylan glanced at it and said, this used to be the Cole family's store. It's been sold. They had a major accident with their shipping business and had to pay a lot in compensation. Seeing me look at him, Dylan continued, oh, by the way, Peter went abroad. He's been gone for a few years. The thing with him and Holly Hawk was all over the news. Serafina didn't have much of a reaction, and Holly wouldn't marry him, so he just left. My advisor was curious. Holly Hawk? Is that the second daughter of the shipping magnate family? Dylan smiled. Professor Lee, you know her? Of course. She's always in the tabloids. I like to read them when I'm bored. Is it true about her and that famous actress? It's true. My advisor was delighted. Your media is so daring. A few years ago, I read she was getting married, right? To some rich guy's son. What happened to that? Dylan glanced at me before saying, the rich family went bankrupt. And the son never wanted to marry her anyway. It was an arrangement between the parents. But then the family had a major incident and went bankrupt, so of course it was all off. I looked back at the storefront again. That was the first place I had ever seen Peter's parents. Back then, Peter was still studying in the country. His parents must have been in the area for business and were checking on the store. As I walked by, I heard someone call out Peter. I turned around, and they looked at each other, then said to me, sorry, we thought you were someone else. The scene was still vivid in my mind, but everything had changed. The day I flew from San Francisco back to New Jersey, Serafina came to see me off. She had just come from a meeting, her executive assistant still trailing behind her, giving her a report. The woman's suit she was wearing was still familiar. It was a gift I had given her when we were together, as a return gift for the apartment she gave me. Our relationship always seemed so unequal, but I had always carefully tried to find a little balance in that inequality, to soothe my heart that was then pleading for love. The apartment was from a development she had built at the time the suit was my entire semester's scholarship. She seemed to notice me looking at her suit. A small smile appeared on her lips. Then she asked sincerely, "Does it look good?" It did. She always looked good. She had a powerful kind of beauty. I was once mesmerized by that power. But there are so many beautiful things in this world. The fireworks over the bay are beautiful. The sky in New Jersey is beautiful. Even the cells in my lab have their own kind of beauty. There are so many things that can captivate me. And of course, maybe one day another beautiful person will appear. Life is always full of surprises and wonderful ideas. I smiled at her and said, "It looks good. You always look good." Her eyes instantly filled with surprise. But I still said the next sentence. "But I have a feeling I'll meet someone even more beautiful. Goodbye, Serafina." She looked at me stubbornly, not saying goodbye. "We'll meet again. People always find ways to see each other again." My next meeting with Serafina was at a new drug introduction conference. The time after that was at the founding meeting of a new research lab in New Jersey. Time pushes us forward, leaving memories and embarrassments far behind. "Hello, Julian Bates. A bright future is waving at you."